sorry. Oh, okay. Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Spring is in the air because my allergies are killing me, but that's okay. Seems appropriate too. Just as we're reading the call to worship and also the passage I chose today, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's a really good reminder. It's like, wow, we are a part of a new creation, and God is calling us, to join Him in His work. So, yeah, I'll be sharing a little bit of a ministry update along with an invitation for you to consider what is your part in God's bigger story today. Hold on, let me see. Does this work? Okay, yeah, it does work. Okay. So, give me a second. This, actually, it's from a while ago. I don't know if you can guess what era. I know. Yeah, when I used to have glasses. So this is from a while back. This is from my university days. So for those of you who don't know, so now I serve with Power to Change, and as a student I was involved as well on campus. But this was a bit of the backstory. I sort of actually began at Totem Park residence at UBC, which was known, back then David Letterman was the late night show guy, and he actually, which is crazy because he's from the US, right, but he mentioned Totem Park because he was like, yeah, Totem Park is the top 10 places to lose your virginity. And I was like, wow, I can't believe we have a reputation for something, but I'm like, it's not the best, you know. So that was sort of where I started. So I landed at UBC as a first-year student trying to figure out where I belong. And I ended up living in Totem Park, which I then found out a bit of its reputation, known for being a party residence. And then down the road there was Vanier Park residence, which was known as like the study party place, you know. Everyone just studied really hard there and stuff. I remember like even the big events that we have at Vanier Park, like they would have like a sports day, you know, which is good and fun. At Totem, they would have color wars where you basically like throw water balloons of paint in it and you like soak your pillow in like colored paint and you go around hitting people. It's crazy. There's like paint covering the whole place. They actually had to ban it afterwards because there was too much vandalism involved. But anyway, so it was interesting. At that time when I lived in Totem Park, I was like a part of this Bible study group. So actually a couple that were with Power to Change, they started leading a discipleship group in Totem Park. And then it was actually, like a really meaningful space of community. They came in every week and led this Bible study. And me and some of the people on our floor, as well as other floors, they joined in. But it was a mix of like Christians and non-Christians. And we came out to talk about like life, faith, and pretty much like all like sorts of topics, you know. So in second term, actually, the couple decided that they would move overseas to serve as missionaries. And so they asked if I would be willing to like lead this discipleship group along with another like older student. I was not equipped or prepared, I felt like, but they were like, we're gonna mentor you, and like, you know, it's like really simple. You can just follow like the Bible study material. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is doable. So I started leading this group, but I wasn't prepared for all the other questions that weren't in the guidebook. I was like, guys, you're not following the plan, you know, what's happening? We're supposed to do this Bible study on, I don't know, the gospel or something. And then I remember, because we had such a mix of people would be like, well, what do you think about evil and suffering in the world? How do you even explain that there can be a God if there's evil and suffering? And I'm like, that's a good question. I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to get back to you next week, you know. And every week I just come with all these lists of questions to my mentor back then, Peggy, and she was like, okay, like it's all right, you know, you don't need to know all the answers, but it's good that they're asking questions. But usually, like every time I'd be, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen this week, you know. But I think what I began to realize, like, wow, actually people are really looking for answers. And despite like, maybe I see them on the weekend, you know, partying and stuff like that, actually, when I started to have my door open, my room door open, people started coming by, and like life would happen in these places where we could talk about deep things, you know. And I remember distinctly even one of the girls that was really popular on the floor and everything. Yeah, like for a long time, I'm like, wow, she's like, everyone loves her and everything. But I remember her one day coming over, and then we just started chatting, and she talked about how she really struggled with her family life, especially of her relationship with her mom. And as I started to care for her more, we realized she was really struggling with an eating disorder. And so I was like, wow, I couldn't tell, on the outside. She had her whole life together and did pretty well in school and all this stuff. But I think I began to realize, I'm like, oh, actually, it wasn't just a choice about are you going to belong to the party group or the study group? But actually, deep down, everyone was trying to figure out a place of belonging and their sense of identity. And I began to realize, I'm like, even in my own faith, I was like, I had a lot of questions. And actually, in all the places where culture and the world is trying to give us answers, it's I think it became a place where, what if actually all along, maybe the Christian environment I was growing up in is actually maybe there's something about Jesus that has to do with every single person, that actually Jesus is relevant for our time. And so miraculously, yeah, actually I saw friends that I lived with actually come to faith, despite all the questions that they had. People on my floor were like, hey, can I come to church with you? And I was like, really? You want to go to, and I was going to my grandparents' church at that time. So I was like, are you sure? It's maybe there's older folks and stuff like that. I don't know if you're going to fit in. But yeah, so one of the girls that did come to faith, she was probably the last person I thought that would come to faith, because she was the one that asked so many challenging questions. And when I invited her, I was like, she was like the token Caucasian in an Asian church of all these older people. And I was like, are you sure you're comfortable here? And yet, I just saw God work in a powerful way in her life to transform her life. And the year after, we actually ended up leading a discipleship group in Vanu residence, the study party place, And so it was sort of crazy, because I would never thought. And this friend of mine now I actually just went to visit her this January in Australia. So she's actually married to a Presbyterian minister, and they have a church community in Sydney that they're discipling people and building the movement of God there. And so for me, I didn't actually anticipate myself doing campus ministry actually when I graduated, and I was definitely very I don't know what I want to do, especially during the last year of school. I was like, oh man, God, I don't know what you have in store for me, but I don't know what I want to do, what I'm passionate about. But I think the unique thing, and this is time and time again, where I started to realize the calling of God. So this was really helpful. I remember going to a conference one time and talked about there's a primary calling and a secondary calling. And our primary calling is those things don't change. We're called to love God of all our hearts, our soul, our strength. And then the secondary calling, how it's lived out, it can be different. Where we work, who we work with, what type of things that we're doing day to day, that can change. But there's core things that don't change. We're loving God of all our hearts, our soul, our man, the great commandment, and then also the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations. And today, the passage that I highlighted is actually beginning with, because our lives have been changed, because the love of God compels us, it changes the way that we see the context that God has put us in. That wherever we go, we would be actually Christ's ambassadors. So there's more to my story. Definitely talk to me, and I could share more about the crazy things that happened in between getting from where I was as a student to now. But that's a bit of the backstory. And what captivated me about campus ministry was this vision, that we long for a day where no student would graduate without hearing the life-changing message of the gospel. And it captivated me because I'm like, wow, that is crazy. There are so many students. How can they all hear the gospel? And then as being involved in the ministry itself, I was notice that actually if we reach every single first year, every year, at least if every single person has a chance to hear the gospel, then actually in 4 years, then, well, people take 4 years, 5 years, 6 years maybe, but supposedly in 4 years when people graduate, it's wow, they will get a chance to hear the gospel, And so it captivated me because I'm like, okay, this is crazy ambitious, but not just about the numbers, but I'm like, what if actually God could not only change the life of a student, but our world through students being reached with the gospel? Because And I think it's actually still pretty similar. Like when I first started on campus, it's like only 5% of the world gets to go to college and university, because a lot of people don't have a chance to pursue post-secondary education. So many of us, even here in this room, that have had a chance to do like post-secondary education, we're like actually a very privileged group of people. And maybe like it didn't come to reality until I've gone to different parts of the world. I'm like, wow, actually. So for example, a student that I worked with in East Asia, she's teaching at a high school, and it's like in a very rural area in Asia. And it surprised me because, first of all, her class size is like 60 students, which I'm like, one teacher for 60 students. That ratio would not fly here. But I was like, are you okay with like 60 students? And she's teaching English, so she has to mark their stuff, right? So I'm like, how are you going to mark? And that's just one class. I think she teaches like 2 or 3 classes at least, you know. And so it's like, that's a lot of students, like 180 students or something like that, right? How are you going to mark all their like assignments? And the school also requires that they do home visits. So she has to visit every single kid and their family in the village. And I was like, oh my goodness, how are you like, how do you even have time to like sleep, you know? But she's like, oh, actually it's all right, because by second term, half of them would have dropped out of school. And I'm like, for real? And she's like, yeah, to be honest, like they're in high school, but we're still like working on basic like spelling and even sometimes the alphabet, you know. It's like most of the time they're in a space where their families are farmers and stuff, so they need hands to like help on the farm and stuff, so they actually can't continue to stay in school, even though we're like the government's trying to change that and they really want people to get educated. So she's like, yeah, by second semester, maybe like my class will drop down to like 30 people each. So I'm like, okay, so what do you do, you know, in that situation? Because she's like, yeah, like it's really hard because if they don't finish high school, they can't go to university and stuff. So she's actually one of the few people that have had a chance to go to university, but really wants to go back into this area to sort of see that change, you know. And she's like, and the time when I was talking to her, she only met one other Christian in that like town. And so, yeah, like, in terms of spiritually, there's a huge need, but also education needs. And then also there's a lot of poverty in some of these areas. But it made me realize, I'm like, oh, actually, there's a lot of people that are in similar situations around the world. So the fact that like those of us who have a university education, we're actually going to be the influencers. That actually the people that go to universities are likely the people that will one day be people that are teachers, that are, I don't know, doctors, lawyers, engineers, people that actually have a say in leadership to influence our world. And so that captivated me because I was like, wow, if we see the lives of students change, they can go and change the world. So this vision of seeing every student hear the gospel is the vision, and the mission is like we want to help students take their next step towards Jesus, whatever that may be. Some students have maybe grown up in a Christian environment and actually, but struggle to like fit together. It's like, what does that mean for my life? How do I live out my faith? Is this actually my own faith as well? Whereas other students have like never heard the gospel before. And so there's a wide mix of people coming from different places. But if we are able just to help students to take their next step up towards Jesus, we hope that this is a tangible way that we like live out this gospel truth, this ministry of reconciliation that we long to like bring to others as well. So this is a picture of chapel night back in September, and yeah, it sticks out for me because this is like actually at UBC outside the village area where the McDonald's is and stuff. But it was a gathering of like all the different Christian groups coming together for an evening to pray, to worship together. And it was interesting because even the people that were walking around were drawn in. They're like, what are you guys doing, you know? Like what's happening? Do you guys do this regularly? And conversations even started to happen there. But this image like is powerful because it's like, wow, like this is sort of what we are, maybe in a dark place, in a time when our world is really chaotic, when it seems to be like, man, are these wars going to come to an end? Is there going to be a transformation in places that are so impoverished that they would actually get access to education, clean water, different things? I was like, what if this generation of students would bring light into the places that they will eventually get sent to? Yeah, so it's a powerful image. Quiz time. I always do some sort of quiz. I think we'll just have maybe 2 questions in the whole time. But first one is, what percentage of young adults that grew up going to church still attend church, do you guys think? Okay, Gershoman's very confident. Anyone else? The same one. This is in Canada. These are. Oh, okay, we got a mix. So who thinks 80? Okay, we're not very optimistic at all. 55? Okay. 33. Gershoman's very confident of that. Okay, whoa, this one's got a huge one. And 10? Okay, these are like, there's no hope, or no kidding. There is still hope. So it's actually 33%. So that means about like, okay, so don't be excited about that. I mean, you get it right, but it's not a great number, guys. Like, what's happening? Gershoman's like, yes. So it's changed actually quite a bit, because I remember when I first started on campus, when I share with people, I'm like, yeah, about 50% of the people that go to university don't continue in their faith or lose their faith. So that number has gone up to almost 70%, So we're noticing, and there's been like research done like through Barna and through some other like groups in North America of like what's actually happening with this next generation. And the interesting thing is that even though around 70% of people are losing their faith when they're going to university, but around 80% of people are coming to faith while they're in university. Like, that's such a pivotal time that people are coming, into relationship with Jesus in their time at university. And then, so this past year, like we ran Alpha, but also I wanted to mention that Gen Alpha is also very receptive to the gospel. That the finding has been the generation of like high schoolers that are soon coming into university are actually very curious and open to learning more about God, way more than previous generation. And part of it has to do with like there's less baggage with like maybe the past of like bad experiences. I mean, there still sometimes is negative experiences, but Gen Alpha has like been seen to be like more curious and open to explore spirituality and faith. So that's really encouraging. And then when we ran Alpha this like every January to like March or so, the Christian groups at UBC would like collaborate together and run Alpha. And actually, it's been really receptive. Like, I think there were probably 16 tables or something, quite a few students that came out. And the relationships that were formed have continued to like grow. I think Jen Lynn did it last year, and then their group actually just continued to meet up, like just to hang out and stuff on campus. And so there's things that are happening that's hopeful, but it's something to remember and to like maybe think of as you maybe are praying for our young adults and our youth as well going into university. And curiously, I don't have the stats here, the finding has also been if there has been like someone from a church connecting a student to a campus ministry or someone on campus that's a Christian, they're like almost like 60 or 70% more likely to get connected on campus. And so like you guys play a huge role in connecting young people, like whether it's to Power to Change, InterVarsity Navigators, when there's that connection that's made, they're way more likely to continue to grow in their faith. So this is our Vancouver team. So there's a lot of people here. However, so in total, there's like 13 people on our like Vancouver Power to Change students team, and then 5 that's on the Bridges team. So the Bridges ministry works primarily with international students. And so this is at UBC and SFU, Capilano University, and Langara as well. However, even though it looks like a lot of people, this is the other one of the Bridges crew. We had a chance to go down to our like resource center in Abbotsford. I actually called up so on the corner there, Darren, he's our president. He's very cool and chill. He actually looks like a student, so he's come onto campus and people think like he's a university student too. But he came, like his faith was really like formed when he went to SFU. And so he served with Athletes in Action for a while, and then worked as a pastor for a while, and then has now like come back to Power to Change. But he gave us a tour, and we also got a chance to like just see the other ministry areas and stuff like that. But this team of people, even though it seems like a lot of people, most like half of us are like actually part-time only. So either we're involved in other areas. So for example, myself, I'm actually part-time on campus, and then my other time is actually primarily working on our global missions team. And so there are people that are working on different teams, as well as those that may be taking care of kids and stuff like that. So, pray for our team. This is the crew. And I wanted to emphasize, like, actually, even each one of us are stories of not only just how we join staff, but also our like sense of calling to do campus ministry is really compelled by also this idea. It's like that, we're not living for ourselves, but living for Christ who like died for us. And so things like our staff retreat or different things and staff conference and stuff, it's like space for us to realign and being like, actually, I always mention this, but like I really believe that God's primary ministry is us. And so everything else that we do for him, whether we're helping someone come to know Jesus, discipling people, like that's secondary ministry. But the work of God's formation in our lives, that is his primary ministry in our lives. And so, yeah, for us, the reminder that this gospel that we bring to others is something that we need day to day in our lives. So one thing that, God has been really like convicting me these days, especially as I've been preparing for the Vietnam trip, when I was asked like to consider leading again this year, I was like, what are those factors that, make me want to go and lead? And then what are those factors that make me a little bit hesitant? Most of the factors where I'm like, I want to lead is like comes from, like God has really transformed lives. And I really believe like, as we bring Canadian students overseas, their worldview as well as just their heart for God, the nations, like all those things are so formative. It's like a greenhouse, And so I was like, if I could serve and facilitate that space, that would be awesome. But the other part of it is like, I'm like, I don't want to lead a team, or like, I just feel worried because what crises can come up. And I'm just like, man, so many things can happen. And even last year, we were actually doing pretty well. It's just a little bit at the end where someone stepped on a needle on the beach. And I was like, okay, that's not good. We hope you don't have AIDS. And then he had to go through a treatment for AIDS. They're like, oh man, that was like the last week, But things like that come up, and I was like, I just can't like prepare for that. How do you? Well, I mean, we can proactively take precautions, but we don't know what's going to happen really. So God's really been convicting me. It's like, actually, I'm calling you to be finding your sufficiency in me. And so I've noticed in the last like little while, even in the times that I get to mentor people, that's been a topic. And I remember specifically challenging a group of girls when we had dinner after a weekly meeting one time. I was like, hey girls, like you guys all want to grow in your faith, and you say you want to trust God, which is awesome. And what do you think is hindering you from trusting God, And then, they name different things like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, sometimes it's just hard to trust him and I'm struggling. And I'm like, in all honesty, I'm like, you struggle to trust God because you're not putting yourself into positions where you actually have to trust him. Are you willing to pray, God, help me not be self-sufficient? Help me to release everything that caused me to be self-sufficient and help me to be God-sufficient. And I challenged him to that, but I'm like, that's also the day-to-day challenge for me. Can I pray that prayer, And so, it's many steps of faith, because exactly this time last year, as I was preparing to go, on the 19th actually, my grandpa passed away. And many of you guys prayed and were really supportive in that time. But I was literally going to leave in 7 days, and I was like really begging my parents, can the funeral be on the weekend so I could go to the funeral and leave right away? But they were like, we can't do it, we got to do it the week after. And I was like, how can I'm going to miss the first week of which I'm overseeing orientation. I'm like the mission trip director, I need to be there, I think, But God is like, you're not irreplaceable. I mean, you're not indispensable, even though you're irreplaceable. There's this idea where, yeah, Evelyn, you're not the one holding everything together. Like, I am the one in control. So I was like, okay, literally this year, I was like, please God, may my grandma not pass away. Like, she just has to make it through. Ideally, through to July, it would be great, And she's been staying at our house, so it's been nice to spend time with her. She seems really healthy. She's even gained weight. So I'm like, wow, this is great, She's healthy and strong, I'll have dinner probably over later tonight. But in all honesty, I'm like, all of us don't know what's going to happen. But are we on a pattern and a trajectory of God's sufficiency in our lives? So, Power to Change, we have about 500 staff across Canada. In 10 different ministries. So these are the different ministries. Any of these familiar to you guys? Or have you guys been involved in any of those? Like AIA, they do soccer camps and stuff. Probably what's familiar is Family Life because and also just a side plug too. It's like if you guys are interested in their like weekend retreat, like for couples and married couples, I think I can get discounts for you guys or something. So in the future, we could get you connected. I think it's up to Whistler and Victoria are the ones that happen in the year. Yeah. So then there's other ministries as well. Like Drime does drama, and they do like teach people how to like have this performance of like no words and stuff. It's just music, and then people just come by, and then when they're watching it, you could engage and talk with them. So it's really cool. Connecting Streams works with the marginalized, so they do some prison ministry, as well as like working with the vulnerable. Christian Embassy actually works in Parliament. They actually work with MPs as well, and MPs and their like wives or husbands, and like they have a ministry where they do Bible study with different MPs. Of course, it's not like super public. People don't see that on TV, but they're able to connect with like leaders. And there's a prayer breakfast every year as well. Even like there's a chance where the prime minister is there, and then you get a chance to pray for like the leaders of our country. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. Leader Impact works with business leaders. There's different chapters in Vancouver downtown and stuff. Jesus Film, like they work with church planters in different parts of the world to show the film, and then like through that actually like have the pastors do outreach and different things like that. Digital strategies, so a lot of people that are connecting online. So we have like, and actually anyone here could also even apply to be a mentor with the digital strategies team, and you get a chance to get connected with people around the world to like mentor them and help them come to know Jesus or disciple them as well. So, and then Gain, that does a lot of humanitarian work in different parts of the world alongside church planters and stuff as well. So a lot of different ministries. There's over like 25,000 staff globally in 190 countries. So we're part of like this bigger ministry and movement. So that's a bit of information. And so specifically on campus, like our hope is to really engage with students. So Discover Experience Inspired is referring to, we want to help students discover who Jesus is, and then we want them to experience the power of the Holy Spirit to like be able to learn how to like live out their faith and grow in their faith as well as share their faith. And then Inspire is like we want them to be inspired to multiply their faith and impact others as well. So this was, I think, Imagine Day, which is like a big like first day of school, lots of students coming through. So we did a bunch of surveys and stuff, and then had a chance to follow up with some of these students and connect with them. So like the passage we had looked at, this is like on campus, like I feel like it was described before that someone told me, it's like, you know what you do on campus? You're basically church planting every year. And I'm like, wow, I never thought about that. But we basically started a new year, and it's like all these new people, and then we're helping them grow. We're getting them plugged into small groups and stuff, discipling them. And then the older students, we're helping them like learn how to disciple others. And then we redo that every year, a new batch of people. So they actually said, it's like, yeah, you guys would make amazing church planters. And I'm like, wow, it's true in some ways. But yeah, so it's exciting, and then especially being in the crux of like, wow, people are coming to encounter God, and it's very pivotal in their lives at this time. So I'm gonna now invite Rayanne up. So initially I was gonna share her story, and I asked her for permission. I was like, hey Rayanne, can you share your story? Can I share your story at church? And then I told her it was happening today, and she's like, oh, can I come? And I was like,
no, you asked me if I could come.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, did I ask you?
I didn't volunteer.
Oh, that's true. Maybe. I felt like you would be courteous to be like, hey, okay, can you come? But I was like, well, if you can come, it would be great if you could share your own story. But I had some questions prepared. So, okay, just a bit of the backstory. So Rayanne, I've known her since, I think her second year maybe. Yeah, second year. And when I first met her, she was leading our Heart for Evangelism team. So the Heart for Evangelism team is like trying to equip students on how to like share their faith. And so that was when I knew, I'm like, wow, okay, Rayanne has a heart to share her faith, which is great. And then I thought, okay, like, over the last few years, like just seeing how she's grown in her faith, and then thought it would be good if you could share some of your experience, maybe beginning with like, maybe how has being involved with Power to Change helped you grow in your faith?
Well, I see Evelyn every week, which is actually really helpful. But I think that is one of the big things, is like being in a community where people around you just like really love Jesus, and that just rubs off on you, I think. I remember like in my first year, I met this girl who was talking about how when she was in high school, like she prayed for one of her friends because like they were like on a basketball team or something, and then like he twisted his ankle or something like that, and then she had a friend who was like, okay, let's just go pray for him, like, let's just go pray for him to be healed. And they prayed for him, and his ankle was like completely fine after. And she was sharing that story, and I remember hearing that because I grew up in a Christian home and in a Christian school, and I thought I knew what Christianity was all about, and I thought I knew Jesus really well. But I remember hearing that story and being like, whoa, there are so many sides of God that I haven't even discovered yet, or haven't even experienced, and I didn't know that God was still wanting to be at work in our lives in this way. And so I think being involved in community where they themselves can like share their own experience with you, like that just really rubs off on you, and you're like, oh, you get so inspired, like, oh, I want to see God work in that way, or I want to be a part of His kingdom work as well. Yeah, so I think that's a big way. Oh, also, another way, I think it's just like practically learning how to ask people questions. I think like when I first started at UBC, like the question that everybody asks is like, oh, like what's your name? Like what are you studying? And what year are you in? And then the conversation usually just kind of dies, or like, I don't know, unless you're like in class with them or something. But I think I remember like going to P2C, and the questions there like that people would ask would just be so different. Like it would be like, oh, like how have you seen God at work in your life? Or like, have you ever had a spiritual experience? Or like, you know, like if you could ask God a question, like what would you ask him? Like these kinds of things, I think just shifted my own mindset into like what I was paying attention to in my everyday lives, and also gave me ideas for conversations to talk to my classmates about too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been exciting because like also seeing some of your family members come to faith as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to mention a little bit about that? Or?
Yeah. One of my cousins, I mean, so like I think like growing up, I always like mention like Jesus to her, and like I don't know if you guys know Awana, but it's like this kids program where you memorize Bible verses and things, and she came to our church as Awana, but it was just because my aunt just needed like daycare or whatever. It's like free babysitting, and so like she wasn't like, she kind of like knew a little bit about like who Jesus was, and as we like grew up together, I like shared the gospel with her multiple times, but like for her, like it was never really something that she felt like was relevant to her. Like she was like, okay, this is like great for you, and I can see you're really passionate about it, but I don't really see how this is applicable to me. And also I think because she was like very involved in her school and like extracurriculars and things, and she was also saying like, I feel like I'm too busy, like I don't have time to like be a Christian, and so that was also one thing. But yeah, like over the years, like as I continued to pray for her with my parents as well, there was one day I remember I was at church, and then I was talking to an auntie, and she was asking about my cousin, because my cousin she knew her from like Awana, and then she was like, oh, like maybe you could just invite your cousin to like a worship night or something. You never know. And I just remember like that idea just sticking in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, like I could just invite her to like church or something like that. I don't know why that didn't ever really like pop into my head. And so I invited her to this worship night, and honestly, like I didn't really think that she was gonna come, because yeah, it was like far away from her home, and then I just wasn't expecting her to come, and she was like really busy, but she ended up coming. And then I remember like the whole night I was just like, God, like, oh no, like, cause not that it was like a bad worship, like I don't think that was like bad worship nights, but it was just dragging on for like so long. It was like 3 hours of like nonstop singing, and like there was like no break, and like I'm like, she's singing here, like she's just standing there. She's not a Christian. She doesn't know any of the songs, so she's just standing there for like 3 hours. I was like, God, like you gotta somehow work. And then somehow, like I don't know, like one of my other friends was there, and they started getting into this long conversation where he shared the gospel with her, and she actually ended up accepting Christ that night into her life. So I was like, wow, like God, like you, like I can't orchestrate these things, like because if I had it my way, like I would have orchestrated like the perfect worship night where there's like some songs that she does know, and then there's like a 20-minute break, like a pastor saying like with perfect words and everything. But I think like that just really showed me that like Evelyn was saying, like there are so many things that you can't plan, and so many things that are out of your control, but like it's, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like it's God working, and like it's so cool to be able to witness that. Yeah. and get to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So I heard that you recently made a decision to go on a mission trip. How has God invited you to trust him in that? And also, how did God work in your parents' life?
Okay. So at the beginning of the year, there's this passage in Luke 7 about this woman who has her like alabaster jar of perfume, and then she pours it out at Jesus' feet, and she breaks the jar. And I remember reading that story and being so inspired by it, because it wasn't like Jesus asked her to do that for him. Like, it wasn't like Jesus commanded her, like, oh, you must like give me this jar of perfume. It was just something that she wanted to do for God, out of like just gratitude for everything that he's done for her. And I remember praying, I was like, God, like, oh, like I would like to have a heart like this woman, like to do something beautiful for you this year. And then like a week later, I think we were like UBC Chapel or something, and then I bumped into Evelyn, and then Evelyn was like, oh, like, Rand, like, do you want to go on this mission trip? And I was like, no, thanks. And then I remember like that weekend, God, like, it was just one of those things where, like, I don't know, it just sticks in your brain a little bit. Like, oh, like, Evelyn mentioned this mission trip, and I just kept thinking about this mission trip, even though I was like, no, like, I don't really want to do it, because it's like the end of May until the end of June. And I had like all my reasons why. I was like, well, like May, like I'm super busy, like I'm graduating, and also like school, and like in April I have like finals. I have to raise a lot of money. Also, my dad's birthday is in June. Like, I don't want to miss his birthday, especially because last year, like, my brother missed my dad's birthday. I was like, no, we need to like celebrate it, like all four of us together this year. So it was just like all these reasons like in my head. But then like as I was like going through those things, like I think God was just reminding me of that prayer I had prayed at the beginning of the year, like hey, like, you know, like, remember like when you asked me for an opportunity to do something beautiful for you. And I was like, really? Like, maybe not this though, like, I'll like, something else, like, let's do something else, you know. But it just kept sticking in my mind. And then I remember there was like one day I was on the bus, and then Evelyn sent me this like long message about like, oh, like, I think like you should go to this mission trip, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh. And then I remember being on the bus, I was like, but God, like, it's my dad's birthday, like, I can't miss it. And then I remember God just being like, just check the website, check what days like the mission trip actually is, because all I knew was like end of May, end of June. So I checked the mission trip day, and we come back like at one day before my dad's birthday, and I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, like, really, God? And I'm like on this bus, and I'm like, oh, like, I'm like feeling so angsty, but I was like praying on this bus, and I think I just like really like felt God saying like, Rand, like, I want to invite you on an adventure with me. And it was so cool because throughout the week, like, I was like talking to my friends and everything, and I didn't tell anybody that, like, that's kind of what God had impressed upon my heart. And all my friends were like, Rand, like, it just really seems like God wants to go on an adventure with you. And then when I told my pastor, he said the exact same thing, and I was like, whoa, what the heck? But I think like throughout this entire process, like one of the reasons why I was struggling so much too is just because like I was afraid of what other people would think of me, because I had to like raise so much money, and I was like, oh, like, I don't want to think that like, I don't know, like I'm mooching off them, or like because I went on a mission trip in high school and I had to raise money for that. But then that it's like you're in high school, like nobody expects you to like have this certain amount of money, like, oh, like you like no one expects you to like be working and like, you know, are able to earn your own. But it's like, oh, now that I'm at a certain age, like people have these expectations of like, you know, like, come on, you're 24, like let's get it together, like, why are you still in school, like, why are you asking me for money? Like, so I just had like all these insecurities, but I think like God was really inviting me to a place of like trust in him, and also like to value like his opinion of me more than anyone else's. I think Evelyn always says this too, like we live for like an audience of one person, and I think that was like really impressed upon my heart in that. And then another thing was also like just like my parents, because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Taken or like heard of that movie. It's basically about like this like this like I think it was like a teenage daughter and her friend, like she goes on a vacation and then they get kidnapped, and then Liam Neeson has to like go save his daughter and like find her, and like every time I mention like going on a trip to my dad, like that's the movie that he brings up, and like he's like, and like I was like, God, like really, like I had to talk to my parents about this, like how am I gonna do this? And I remember having the first conversation like with my parents. It did not go really well. I was just like, it was like awkward. Like they didn't really say anything. I didn't really say anything. But I just continued to pray. And in my conversations with them, like subsequent to that, like my dad was like saying like, man, like, you know, like I prayed about this, and like I'm like, he was saying like, I'm not like Abraham, like I can't sacrifice Isaac or anything like that. And then it was so cool because that was a Saturday, and then the next day we went to church, and my pastor was like, probably some of you out here like don't think you're like Abraham. You probably think you can't sacrifice that. And I just looked at my dad like, and then for my mom, it was like, she was like, well, Rand, like you're doing all this stuff in May already, like, and you're also like graduating, like you have school, like how are you gonna find all this time, like all the things that I had, like all of my like the practical reasons why I didn't want to go, and then I remember I asked my parents, I was like, oh, like maybe could you like just ask God about this, like maybe we can discern together about this trip. And then I remember my mom was like, well, if I have to ask God, you have to negotiate with him so that you go in like 20 years or something. And then I was like, oh, sorry, Mom. Like, I don't think I can do that. And then that was also the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, the person who went up to pray, like at the beginning of service, was like, sorry, God, for thinking that we could ever negotiate with you or like bargain with you. I was like, dang, okay, God. Like, and then also like, I think through my mom's own Bible study, like she like really felt like God was saying to her like to reset like her own priorities, and yeah, it was just really cool to see the way that God was speaking through to my parents, and also, you know, trying to comfort them.
Yeah. So pray for
There was
Rayanne.
more. I didn't finish. But
Okay.
No. I didn't finish, but you can ask me later. Yeah.
Yes.
No, like, I think
So ask her more about that story. Pray for her and her family too, because yeah, it's a big step of faith, not just for her to go, but her parents to release her.
Mm-hmm.
And well, hopefully you won't get taken, but we'll try not to keep bringing that up. But yeah, I really appreciate you sharing just like how God's been at work, because like in all those spaces, it's evident that you're sort of like, okay, I'm willing, but this is still like scary and requires like you to learn to yield to Christ as well.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Yes. Thanks for sharing,
praying
Rayanne. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, the next part is, that's maybe one part of what I do in terms of maybe mentorship. But what does Evelyn actually do on a day-to-day basis? So another quiz time. Do I lead a discipleship group? Do I share the gospel with students? Do I make IG posts to promote mission trips? Get coffee for our interns? All of the above? What do you guys think? Of course it's not going to be so easy. It's a trick question. So, actually, it's not E. So, I actually don't lead a discipleship group currently. Yeah. So I don't lead a group because I don't have as much time on campus, and it means like having to track of a lot of people. But I do mentor students who are leading a group, leading discipleship groups, and I coach like the Heart for Evangelism team as well. I do share the gospel. So B is the right answer. I share the gospel with students. That's actually probably one of my highlights, getting a chance to go out. So actually, me and Rayanne had a chance to go out with 2 first-year students, like maybe 2-3 weeks ago. So that was really cool because it was like, you know, they're very new to it. And so I could tell that they're a little bit nervous going out, you know. But we ended up having some really cool conversations. And the person that Rayanne and Natalie went out to talk to, they've actually started to go to church now and had asked for a Bible, I think. So I left for the week after for meetings in Ottawa, and I come back and I'm like, whoa, what happened, you know? This girl that they were talking to is actually like been coming out to a lot of events and stuff like that as well. So yeah, pray for those opportunities, because I think like God is already working and he's inviting us into those conversations. I actually don't make IG posts. I barely know how to do that. But we do have people that are on our marketing team that do that. So there is like people overseeing marketing. My specific area is actually mobilization. So I do more of the people stuff, you know, get a chance to connect with people, talk to them, and their discernment journey. And actually a lot of, like there's times when people decide like not to go as well, but I think it's really important in those spaces to talk through what are those things that God is bringing up in their lives as well. And I actually don't get coffee for our interns because I'm actually a tea advocate. Yeah, Eudora knows. So yes. So I have gotten the matcha and tea, but no coffee. See, trick question. You thought you knew. So this is the other part of what I do. This is our global missions team. There's like 9 of us here, and we work on actually setting up the mission trips, the logistics behind it, training the mission trip directors, preparing the staff for that. And then my area specifically is mobilization, so mobilizing our staff and students to consider going on these mission trips. So some of the areas that I mobilize for, is mission trips, but beyond that is also our global internship. So some of the places that we send to, we want to raise up teams that could go for longer, maybe for a year or 2 years, or become long-term staff as well. So so we do that in partnership with the locals that and the churches and different things that we work with. Those are some of the students that went last year. You might recognize some faces there. A few of the UBC folks. So I do things like online events for students. These are actually the trips that we offer this year. It's really small. This one might be clear. Yeah. So these are the trips that we're running. So as you can see, that's a lot of trips. We have about 100 students going this year. The reading break trips already happened. We went to Honduras, Costa Rica, and had one in Vancouver as well. And then these other ones are happening in the summertime. So we'd really appreciate prayers, not only for Vietnam, even though you'll pray for us as we go, but also for Desert Rain. That's where Rayanne will be going in May. And also we're going to Germany, and where else are we going? That one I go is in Thailand, and Armenia as well is the GAIN trip. So we're going to a lot of different parts of the world. So praying for our safety and the different partnerships we have would be great. This is a snapshot of last year's mission trip. And I think a big part of it is seeing how much like students can grow during that time. It's really like a greenhouse. And hopefully this year, especially because like me and Greg are going to be back there, we can actually meet with the students that we met with last year, some of which are pretty open as well. This is a pilot project I've been running this past year called the Global Missions Cohort. So I've gathered like either students or people that have just started to work. All of them have gone on a missions trip before, but are actually discerning if they would actually do more like ministry or work overseas. And so we would gather every month as a group and then get a chance to, we were going through the book, God in My Everything, like practicing different spiritual rhythms and like healthy like spiritual formation pieces. And then we also set them up with mentors so that they have someone to talk to as they discern. Because one of the key things that we found with Gen Z and probably Gen Alpha coming up is they actually really need mentorship in their lives and people to be coming alongside them, to care for them, to speak into their lives, and also just be a sounding board and to really be a part of their formation and growth. So we're running this again, and we're expanding a little bit to have like 2 streams, like one for people that are like, okay, I might be graduating in a few years and thinking about overseas work, or those that are like, yeah, I'm gonna be graduating this year and I'm seriously considering going. So we're gonna be running this cohort this year. The last part of the passage talks about being Christ's ambassadors. And this passage that we read today speaks about that. And I remember distinctly one time talking to a student who is a non-Christian and having a chance to share the gospel with her. And I told her how like the gospel really changes us and like causes us to make a difference in the world. So as I told her about some of the places I've been and some stories, she was really intrigued, but she asked a question. She was like, if Jesus is so amazing, why isn't he in all the parts of the world that may need him? And I remember just pausing at that moment. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, you're putting all these dots together where it's like, okay, if this Jesus person is so great, why isn't he in these places? Why isn't he healing people? Why isn't he helping people and stuff? And then I said to her, I was like, but he is. Because each and every person that has decided to follow Jesus carries his presence into all the places that they're in. So where each one of us will go, that's actually where we bring the presence of God. And we're his ambassadors, which means like, wow, we have the privilege of like representing him. And it's not by our own strength and power, but actually the work of the Holy Spirit in us as we go. And Frederick Buechner has this quote. He's like a theologian from a while back. He says, the place that God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. So I'll read that again. The place that God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. So for me, that was really pivotal and sort of like when I discerned my calling of like, where would God have me? And in all honesty, I would say like, even up to now, it's like my primary commitment actually isn't to Power to Change. It's actually to Jesus and to his kingdom. So it just so happens that the vehicle, one of the vehicles of many vehicles that God is using is Power to Change. But even here in our midst, I mean, you've heard from like Vincent, who works at OMF, like Jaden shared about InterVarsity. It's like God's kingdom is advancing through all these different avenues. And one of the vehicles is sort of like, you could choose to take a plane, you could choose to take a car, or like a boat, or different things. There's so many vehicles that God is advancing his kingdom. And part of that is like, oh, we get to live out our core calling through these different avenues. So when I discerned like where God would have me, like I sort of came up with this sort of diagram that sort of helped. But any of you guys who are in a space where you're like discerning, where would God have me? Taking that quote from Frederick Buechner, where the deep gladness and a deep like hunger meet, I thought through, it's like, it's basically where our passions are, and then also where are the needs that I resonate with. So for me, as you can see in this picture, my passion is like, I am passionate about discovering the beauty of the gospel. And it's sort of like a diamond where there's so many facets to be discovered. And so I found myself in places where, as much as I'm like doing more leadership stuff now, it's like I still just need to be on the ground, on the field, connecting with people and meeting with non-Christians and like getting a chance to have gospel conversations. So that's like a sweet spot for me. And then the need is like, I realize I'm like, there's unequal access to the gospel. There's just so many places that don't have the same access that we do. Like some places that don't even have a translation of the Bible in their own language. And we have at least a dozen different translations. So there's something that's a huge inequality. And I was like, I want to see that change. So that's why I want to see unreached people groups reach of the gospel. And how it happens, I came to realize this because one of my mentors, she works in digital strategies of Power to Change. And it's amazing because through digital strategies, you can actually reach a lot of places in the world where you physically maybe can't even get to. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, like, I think like that's so exciting, but I don't feel called to that. Why is that? And I realized that deep down, I'm like, I really value living incarnationally. So incarnational discipleship is like a huge piece of like what resonates of who God's made me to be. And so my time in like East Asia and Thailand, it was like I get a chance to be on mission together with people. And that was really life-giving. And then now, maybe my role of mentoring and discipling students, I get to incarnationally be in spaces with them, going out to share their faith, helping them grow in their faith, and seeing them sent out to places. And so, like, my other main role is, like, mobilizing, like, Canadian students. And I get a chance to have a lot of those hard, like, discipleship conversations, but also see transformation and growth as they learn to step out, as well as, like, their families, like, really transformed. So that's something maybe to invite you guys to consider. I had wanted to give you guys to talk a little bit about it. But I want to leave that question with you guys. What are your areas of your passion, and what needs do you most resonate with? So I encourage you to actually have conversations with people, whether it's in your small group or like people that you get to meet with and pray with, to actually talk about this. Like, what are those areas? And the interesting thing is that we don't actually all have to share those same things. There might be things you might resonate with each other, but God has uniquely like shown us maybe areas. It could be part of your own story that makes you particularly like drawn to a particular area too. But I think it's really important for us to think through this, and as a church, like encourage each other towards what God has called us to. Okay, so what's coming up for me? A lot of things. The Vietnam trip is happening, so actually I'll be on the plane with Greg at this time next week. We'll be on the plane, traveling over the ocean, and then the students will join us. People like Pia and Erin will join us the week after as we set up the trip, and we'll be there for like 6 weeks. We'll hopefully continue to work on like a ultimate ministry, a partnership we have there, and also of the local churches. But this year, we're actually going to be taking classes, and I've just realized I'm like, that they're pretty rigorous about us learning as well. So initially when we're like, okay, maybe we'll take one class, they're like, no, you should take 2 language classes and a cultural class. We're going to learn about the history of Vietnam and all this stuff. I was like, wow, we're going to be learning a lot this summer. But it'll be good for our platform because in the future, as we send long-term teams, we want to really have a good relationship with the school because there'll be students taking classes from them. So you can pray for our partnership with the school as we go this year. And then after that, I'm taking 2 months for my sabbatical. Actually, me and Ted were in a sabbatical planning group, so it was good to think through what are those important things that I want on my sabbatical. And so rest and refreshment is part of that. I actually want to revisit and reflect on some of the places that I've had assignments in, basically. So that would be places like Thailand and East Asia that I've actually built relationships with over the year. And then time with family, as well as making space to be attentive to where God is affirming and showing me things about my calling as well. So some of these things, so I'll visit some friends. Actually, some of them are getting married in June, which interestingly, I was asking them, I was like, okay, I'm booking my flights, like maybe I can catch your wedding. And they're like, oh, actually, we don't have a venue yet. I'm like, it's April. So I'm like, this is really different. I have to just learn to be okay, but I'm like, this is not the same as North American standards. They are getting married in June, but 2 of them, and neither of them have a place booked or know which date it is. So anyway, but hopefully I'll just get to see them in general. It's a very different culture, I guess. So yeah, and then yeah, it's been like 5 years, more than that, 6 years since I've seen them. So that'll be meaningful. Some of the Thai friends, and then my brother's also in Thailand, so we try to see each other every year. But yeah, continue to pray for my conversations with him as well. And yeah, just a meaningful time to connect. And a family trip, so I think it'll be fun, but it's also going to be like 12 of us with like 5 kids. So it could be really crazy too. So may have to recuperate from that. But I'm just grateful because it's hard to have everyone in the same place. So we'll be in Japan on a cruise, so all the accommodations and food is figured out. But yeah, so the kids are like 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we got all the range going up. So, yep, it's going to be a party. A lot of boys too, so very active bunch. And then back to the best place on earth, as in beautiful British Columbia. So I will be here, yeah, pretty much mid-July onwards and stuff. So I do hope that there'll be just some time to enjoy some space to connect with people, but also just some time to reflect on like how God has been at work as well. So that's a little bit of where I'm heading. I think that, yep. So, yeah, any questions? Anna. This one?
That's your brother, I guess, take the first person.
Yep. Oh, that is true. There is a common theme here. Yeah. Yes, and you'll notice my brother's decreasing amount of hair is probably, they have a trajectory before them. But, yeah, that's true.
Okay, that was a silly question.
Okay. You have a serious question? Good question. Yeah, that phrase that I shared earlier about like, how can I move from self-sufficiency to God's sufficiency is a big one, but I'm also scared to pray that. But I'm just like, I think there will definitely be moments that will be challenging and stretching, whether it's, the Vietnam trip or time with family and different things. Probably maybe even more sometimes during my sabbatical in some ways, but I do hope that the desire is that I'm learning to hopefully move towards, okay, God is sufficient in this moment. His grace is sufficient for me, but also like who he is like meeting me in this place. So yeah, space to like pause and to have that. And then also for the people around me to have that type of culture as well. I think that's one thing that I'm like, when I think of our Vietnam team going, there's like students from all across Canada and different dynamics that may be at play. And so I think like if we had a culture together of like we're going to come across things that are hard, but can we bring this to God? So if we had a culture of prayer and a culture of like turning to God, that would be really amazing. That would make a huge difference. Particularly, I'm like around conflict resolution. So that's I think a huge growth area, working through conflict. So whether it's within our team during a mission trip, and then also like family dynamics when we're traveling. So hopefully it's a space that we learn to lean into as well. So God's sufficiency in those spaces, a culture of prayer and dependency, and then conflict resolution, opportunities to grow through. Yeah. Any other, Gershon?
How have you experienced, or how are you?
Wow, okay, that's a big question. Right now, as in, or overall? Wow. I think a theme like that I've come to realize, like, I remember maybe a while back, maybe, I don't even know, 5-10 years ago, as I was like discipling students, I'm like, man, there's so many topics that we could cover. We talk about things that we're learning in the Bible, things about prayer, things about sharing your faith, all these different topics. And I just come to a point where I'm like, I can't teach everything to everyone, right? So I realize discipleship, including my very own life, is about patterns. It's about what is the pattern I'm creating. So a common thing that does come up is the reality of, oh man, like I'm so stressed because I have assignments and midterms and all these things coming up. Oh man, like, okay, so I'm like, if maybe after all this, then I'll really be serious about my relationship with God. The interesting thing about that is like, okay, but you're setting a pattern right now in your life. So it's not just, I don't know, it's like sometimes it's just going to be harder weeks, and then yes, we just need a bit of grace, for sure. But I do find that when we find ourselves in this position where we're like, okay, maybe when I have more time, maybe when I'm less busy, then I'll read the Bible, then I'll pray, then I'll do these things. Actually, right now, you're setting the pattern up for your life to not do those things, which you don't know what's going to happen 5 or 10 years down the road. But right now, you get the choice to set a pattern in your life. And so I think, like for myself, like experiencing the presence of God is in those spaces where I get a choice right now. For example, even, I don't know, I'm like, my parents, well, mostly my mom, it started driving me crazy. Usually I have like a 1 week span, and then everything starts to irritate me a little bit. Even her bringing me breakfast irritates me. And I was like, this is so crazy. And I was like, because she's like knocking on my door, I'm like in a meeting, and she's got like a plate of food. I'm like, I can't eat right now. Anyway, but I think in those moments where I'm like, you know what? I have a chance to actually be like, I think she's just trying her best to like love me and care for me. How am I going to respond? Maybe I need to take a deep breath and just be like, okay, she's doing her best to try to care. Like, how can I respond in kindness? But I really need your help, like Jesus, in this. So I think probably a theme is just like, what is the pattern I want for my life? And the choices now do matter because they're going to shape your future choices down the road as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Okay. Well, if there are other things, ask, and you shall receive my words. But yeah, I'm just grateful actually for our community as well, because you guys have been really supportive in so many ways. And I know that, as I'm going this summer, you guys will be praying for me, and I'll probably get some different messages here and there about how things are going. But yeah, I really do, in the same way, want to care for you guys as well. So if there are ways that, you're discerning your call or working through things, like I'd love to be praying for you, praying with you as well in some of those places, because I really believe God, like, we're not just individuals. He's shaping us as a community, and we need to hear our stories of how God is calling us into spaces of dependency on him, and also like kingdom work of being his ambassadors in the world too. So yeah, thanks guys for having me share.